About a month ago, my daughter and I experienced a negative entity, a psychic attack, if you will. And I was debating on whether or not I wanted to share this publicly. I'm really private just with my life in general. And it was a little nerve wracking, I'm not going to lie. But I think because I do receive a lot of questions about this topic, that it could be helpful for some of you. And more importantly, I think that this is a topic that should be spoken about and considered more when it comes to overall well-being, spiritual well-being, because it really does play a role more than we think, or more than we're aware of. And so that's the reason I'm going to share my experience and then just give you some context around how negative entities attach to us, and things of that nature, and help you understand. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So basically about a month ago, I woke up out of my sleep from a very horrific nightmare. This was not what I would consider your average bad dream nightmare. I have never experienced anything like this before. It absolutely ripped me out of my sleep. Again, we've all experienced bad dreams, nightmares, but this was next level, okay? It was so next level that upon waking up, I immediately, within seconds, knew that I was dealing with some sort of negative entity, negative force, attachment, spiritual attack, okay? And so instinctively, I reverted to my trainings, which I'm so grateful for, that, as an advanced energy medicine practitioner of over 20 years and spiritual alchemist, I am trained in working with these things. So I reverted to using some very, very advanced spiritual tools to deal with this entity. It took me a while to figure that out and then, get back to a state of rest. Needless to say, it was a long night, and this was around 4 a.m. So the next day, my daughter wakes up, and this was a little more in the afternoon, and she basically says, "Mom, I need to talk to you. Something happened last night. It was really scary." And now, mind you, my daughter, the one I'm speaking about, is in high school, okay? She's very spiritually aware, very spiritually grounded, but she prefaces this with, "Mom, I don't want you to think I'm crazy. I hope that you believe me." So she basically explains that she was up really late and she was laying in her bed on her side, scrolling on her phone, typical teenager. And she was startled by a noise that came from her vanity, which is right across from her bed. The noise she described it as was like, it sounded like someone took her brush that was sitting on top of her vanity, and then her brush was sitting on top of a wireless charger that she had. She said she sounded like someone took the wireless charger and the brush and picked it up and then slammed it down like that, really hard. So the noise was loud enough for her to kind of feel a little well, what was that? And she looked in the direction of where the noise came from, which was right across from where she was laying on her vanity. And as soon as she looks up, she notices that, or she sees, her brush and the wireless charger slides across her vanity about 1.5 feet to the other side. Now, of course, your first instinct, and most people when they would see something like that, is, what did I just see? Maybe I didn't see that, right? You're going through all the logical kind of things in the head. And so, but it invoked obviously a state of fear for her, naturally, that I think anyone would experience. But because she is trained to a certain degree and very spiritually aware, she instinctively knew that she was dealing with some sort of negative entity and went into using some of her spiritual tools that she has learned to use, which I'm so proud of her for doing, okay? So her initial state was shock and fear and oh my gosh, and then immediately she went into her spiritual tools. And then naturally, as probably anybody would be, she was so startled by what she saw that she proceeded to call and text friends that she was speaking to earlier that night. And, she was texting them, "Oh my gosh, you're never going to believe what just happened." And then she's explaining, and then she got one of her friends to answer and was on video call until she fell asleep, which took her a while. So she's telling me this story. She's reenacting it, showing me what happened. And of course, she's like, "Mom, do you believe me?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course I do." Now, here's what was really interesting. And she's really trying to prove her point. She's like, "Look at my phone if you don't believe me. Look at all the people I text." I was freaking out. And so she's showing me her text messages. Of course, I believed her. But what I noticed when she showed me the text messages is the time. The time aligned with the exact time that I woke up, which was around 4 in the morning. Okay. Now our rooms are right next to each other. So yes, this is something that does happen. And it doesn't always happen in the extreme way that I experienced or my daughter. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I have not experienced anything like that since I was a child. And I'm very usually in my protection, like, I do my work and do a really good job of, protecting my field and cleansing and all of those things. And I'm not going to get into how the spirit arrived and all that, because that's a whole nother story within itself. But here's what I'm going to say for those of you that I think a lot of us don't understand, that some of the patterns that show up in our life and where we're feeling stuck and the fear and all those things, most of the time we don't understand that it does have to do with some sort of psychic attack or negative entity that we're unaware of. And it's more common than you think. And it doesn't always show up in dramatic ways like it did for my daughter and I. Okay, it can show up in very subtle ways that you might think is just, oh, this is just what it is. So I'm going to give you guys some context around what to look for and how this all works, okay? First and foremost, as we know, everything in life is vibration. Most of us were taught in school that everything is made of atoms, right? But what we are not taught is what an atom actually is. An atom is not a solid object. It is a field of motion, a vibrating pattern of energy. And depending on how fast that vibration moves, the very same energy can appear as a solid, liquid, or gas, which reveals something much deeper. Nothing in the universe begins as matter. Everything begins as frequency. Now, form is simply what vibration looks like when it slows down enough for the human senses to perceive it. Reality is not constructed out of objects. It is constructed out of oscillation, out of rhythm, out of resonance. This is why vibration matters, okay? Not as a spiritual language, but as the organizing architecture of reality. And this also means something very important. Your body, as we know, is not physical. Your body is a frequency system. You are a living, breathing broadcast field. Every organ has a frequency, has a rhythm. Every system has a frequency, a rhythm. Every emotional state has a frequency. Every thought pattern has a frequency, a rhythm. And together, these rhythms, these frequencies form your personal frequency architecture, your energetic signature, your energetic identity. When your nervous or when your system is functioning coherently, those rhythms communicate cleanly with each other, okay? But when the emotional patterns become locked, when trauma becomes embedded, when stress becomes chronic, when identity collapses into survival, something very specific happens. The rhythms stop communicating clearly, the field loses coherence, and your vibration becomes distorted. Not spiritually wrong, not morally bad, but informationally scrambled, okay? And this is why illness does not begin in the tissue. It begins in signal, it begins in regulation, it begins in pattern. And this is where ancient metaphysics and modern science quietly meet. Because when vibration does not, well, I'll say this, vibration does not only carry energy, vibration carries information. Frequency is the carrier wave of biological intelligence. Now, here is the missing piece that almost all spiritual teachings skip. The bridge between subtle energy and your physical body is not your aura. It is not visualization. It is not intention alone. The bridge is your nervous system. Okay, your nervous system is the physical control interface of your energetic field. It is the signal processor that translates subtle information into emotion, chemistry, perception, voice, behavior, and identity, okay? Your nervous system is constantly regulating, and I mean constantly regulating how much information you can hold, how much perception you can tolerate, how much emotional energy can move through you, and how much higher consciousness can actually be embodied. Now, there's one question your nervous system is always asking. Am I safe? And the answer to that question determines the bandwidth of your entire energetic field. When the nervous system is organized around threat, your field narrows, awareness contracts, frequency bandwidth collapses. and your entire system becomes optimized for protection, not for expansion, not for creativity, not for spiritual access. This is not psychological, it's biological, and it directly shapes your vibration, okay? And this is also why so many people struggle to maintain spiritual states. They try to access expanded consciousness with a nervous system still organized for survival. Doesn't work like that. The interface cannot hold the signal, okay? So let's talk about the chakras real quick, and then I'm going to connect it to my story. So chakras are not the imaginary wheels of light floating in your body the way we think, right? They are dimensional interface points. They are frequency gateways through which consciousness interacts with your biological system. But the chakras do not operate independently from your physiology. They express through the nervous system. Your root center expresses through survival and safety circuitry, okay? Your sacral center expresses through emotional and gut-brain networks. Your solar plexus expresses through stress response and identity regulation. Your heart center expresses through relational safety and social engagement circuits. Your throat center expresses through breath, voice, and cranial nerve networks. Your brow center expresses through emotional perception integration. Your crown center expresses through global neural coherence, okay? Now, here is the master principle. Your chakras do not regulate your nervous system. Your nervous system determines how much chakra frequency can be safely embodied. This is why emotional alchemy is not optional, okay? This is why trauma work is not separate from spiritual work. This is why embodiment is not separate from consciousness, because unresolved emotional patterns lock the nervous system into repetitive oscillations, and repetitive oscillations become fixed frequency states. Now, this brings us to the topic that is most often understood and often, I think, sensationalized: negative entities, okay? Attachments, parasitic energies, interference fields, forces. Let me speak about this clearly, and I also want to speak about this responsibly. Yes, okay? What people commonly call negative entities do exist, but they are not what movies or religious fear narratives describe. They are not usually powerful demons hunting humans. They are not coherent or incomplete consciousness fields that cannot generate their own life force, okay? Or what I meant to say is they are non-coherent or incomplete consciousness fields. Basically they can't generate their own life force. Okay. They need someone else's light and life force. They survive by coupling to human emotional and nervous system energy, basically. Okay. It's like its food source. In advanced metaphysics, there are three main categories. First, there's residual, or what's considered fragmented consciousness fields. Now, these are not beings with personalities. They are emotional imprints. They are memory fields. They're trauma residues, psychic debris, collective unconscious fragments, okay? When a strong emotional or traumatic state collapses suddenly, it can leave a coherent energetic imprint in the subtle planes, okay? And this would be an example of like if you walk into a room and you're like, oh, there's something going on here, right? Second, there's what we consider parasitic astral organisms. Now, these are closer to what people imagine as entities. They possess weak self-awareness. They do not have internal energy generation. They survive only through energetic coupling, and they feed on emotional current, not morality, not evil, but energetic dependency, okay? And then third, and this is the most understood category, is the disassociated aspects of the human consciousness itself. Large portions of what people believe are external entities are actually split off parts of their own psyche and soul. From the subtle plane, these fragments behave exactly like foreign energy. And it's really interesting, okay? Now, the most important law that you must understand: nothing can attach to a human being unless there is a frequency match. There are no exceptions, Resonance is law. There has to be, it's like the vampire movies. You have to invite it in. Most of us do this unconsciously. It can be conscious or unconscious, okay? Resonance is law. So how does attachment actually happen? Attachment does not begin in the aura. It does not begin in the chakras. It begins in the nervous system and the emotional field. There is a very specific attachment window, and the attachment window is created by unintegrated emotional charge. Now, most commonly, we're talking shame, we're talking long-term fear, helplessness, suppressed grief, chronic resentment, identity collapses, powerlessness. We can go on and on. These emotional states create a standing wave in the biofield, a stable oscillation. That oscillation becomes a docking frequency, if you will, okay? So when the nervous system becomes locked into repetitive emotional patterns, the field becomes predictable. And predictable fields are easy to entrain. And this is the real attachment window. Not trauma itself, not suffering itself, but unprocessed emotional memory held in the autonomic nervous system, okay? So why do entities attach? Because this is a question I get a lot. Because human beings, here's the answer, because human beings generate extraordinary amounts of unstable life force when we are emotionally activated. But here is what most people misunderstand, okay? Entities do not feed on pain. They feed on coherent emotional current. And we're talking about fear, anger, desire, obsession, guilt, longing, resentment, okay? These emotional states produce dense, stable frequency carriers. And I want to say this, low vibration, because we hear that a lot. Low vibration does not mean weak. Low vibration is slow, but dense. Dense energy is easier to siphon, okay? So how do they remain attached is the question. Not because they are powerful, not because you are unprotected. Well, sometimes that could be the case. They remain, here's mainly what it is. They remain attached because the human nervous system continues to generate the same waveform. The anchor is always going to be this. It's always going to be a belief structure, an emotional identity, a memory loop, a survival habit, okay? So the entity does not create the pattern. It stabilizes and amplifies what already exists. And the loop looks like this. It'll look like an emotional trigger, a physiological response, familiar emotional state, identity confirmation. It'll look like an energetic output or some sort of reinforcement feedback, okay? That loop becomes the anchor field. Now, where do attachments anchor? They do not attach to the aura in general. They anchor through functional centers of regulation. And most commonly, we're talking like the lower, this is where I see it a lot, the lower solar plexus field, which governs power, control, identity, will, the sacral field, which governs attachment, desire, emotional bonding, the heart shadow layer, which governs grief, abandonment, and longing. I see it in the in a certain interface, which basically governs fear, memory, vigilance loops. In chakra language, this is chakra plus emotional matrix plus nervous system regulation, okay? Always together. And this is also why attachment is not removed by just visualization alone, just saging it up, not by shielding, not by prayer alone, not by crystals alone. Okay, these are all great tools. And these may provide temporary relief, but the real anchor is neurological and emotional. Remember that. That is how they hook in and feed. Now, let's return to frequency and vibration real quick, okay? Because this is where everything comes clear. Every emotional state produces a measurable waveform, a rhythm, a chemical signature, a neurological coherence pattern, and a subtle field oscillation. So together, these form your personal broadcast signal. Entities do not hunt humans the way we think, okay? They tune to available bandwidth. They respond to stable frequency patterns. They synchronize. And fear is not I'm going to say this, fear is not low in frequency because it's bad. Fear is low frequency because it collapses awareness bandwidth. It narrows perception. It reduces informational complexity or our ability to hold light. That narrow signal is extremely easy to couple with. High frequency states do something very, very specific, okay? They increase coherence and complexity at the same time. So love, presence, gratitude, compassion, clarity, sovereignty. These states widen bandwidth, meaning you're able to hold more light frequency, higher information. They destabilize parasitic coupling, not because they're positive, but because the signal becomes too complex to latch onto for the entity. So here's the master level truth, okay? Entities cannot attach to a sovereign nervous system. A regulated nervous system produces variable frequency, adaptive emotional responses, high informational density, non-repeating oscillations. This is hostile territory for parasitic attachment. Okay? And this is also why trauma creates vulnerability. Trauma collapses temporal awareness. The nervous system becomes trapped in past threat. The subtle field freezes into survival frequency. That frequency becomes the anchor. This is why talk therapy alone rarely resolves energetic attachment. I have not met one person where that's been the case, okay? Where it hasn't been the case. And that's because the attachment is not cognitive. It's autonomic, okay? It's emotional memory stored in the nervous system and the subtle body simultaneously. So here is the real protection mechanism. Not shields, not rituals, not foreign removal, but identity, integration, and emotional alchemy. This is how you can deal with it yourself. When a human reclaims disassociated emotional states and processes the shame, the grief, and the fear, repairs the self-trust, stabilizes that interface, that nervous system, and dissolves unconscious identity contracts, the attachment loses its docking frequency. It falls out of phase. It's that simple. This is the clean metaphysical rule. An entity cannot stay where it cannot synchronize. You've basically said you're not welcome here in so many ways. Your system has, okay? Now, here's something very important. Many people fear external entities, but the deepest liberation does not come from removing something outside of you. It comes from reclaiming the parts of you that were split off. When you become internally whole, you become energetically uninhabitable. Not protected, uninhabitable. Like there's no way in heaven or hell that, it can happen basically. So this is also why sound and voice are so powerful, and they're such powerful access points, because your voice is not only an expression, it is a neural output, it's an emotional output, it's an autonomic output, it's a subtle field output. Your voice carries the coherence of your entire nervous system. It carries your emotional memory. It carries your energetic architecture. One voice sample carries all of that. And this is the foundation of the work that, we teach inside of Ascension Academy, okay? Which brings me to something very special that I actually want to invite you to if you feel called. So I'm opening a very limited 12-week case study for a very small group of people who are ready for the next level in their journey. And this is not, I'm going to say this is not for people looking for surface level healing, okay? This is not for people who want, another spiritual identity. This is for people who are ready to actually recode their frequency architecture. The program is called the Frequency Code. And in the Frequency Code, you discover how sound and vibration shape the very fabric of reality, how human potential is unlocked at the level of signal, and how frequency becomes the master lever for biological repair, emotional liberation, and expanded consciousness. This work blends ancient wisdom with modern science. That's why I love it. and it introduces newly explored and undocumented frequencies with the potential to influence cellular function, neurological coherence, emotional processing, and even how the body experiences time. And we're talking about from the healing power of 528 hertz, okay, God frequency, the deeper harmonic, structures that support cellular repair, regenerative signaling, all that. The frequency code, what we're learning here, and what it's going to teach you is how to use sound as a precision tool for transformation. And I'm not talking symbolically, I'm talking technically too, okay? So as a part of this case study, because the case studies before I open it up to the public, you will also receive full access to my frequency technology platform called Resonyx, okay? And this is just my gift to you for stepping up to the plate and saying, I'm ready, right, to be a part of the collective healing. Resonyx analyzes your personal, energetic, and neurological signal through your voice. It detects imbalances across emotional, neurological, and biofield layers. And yes, it can reveal signatures associated with parasitic, energetic attachments and interference patterns that operate through the nervous system. We can actually see psychic attacks happening, all of that, okay? So this access is included for anyone who participates in the case study, okay? But I want to be very clear. This opportunity is only open to a few people. We actually already have our round 1 case study going on now. And we're going to be doing a second round for a very small group of people. And so this is for those that feel that quiet but, undeniable pull inside, that they are here to unlock something far beyond symptom relief, beyond repeating emotional cycles, beyond inherited limitations. Okay, so you are ready to reclaim authorship of you over your emotional architecture, over your energetic sovereignty, over the creative intelligence that runs your life. This is a category-defining solution. There is no other program currently offering this level of support or this nervous system-driven frequency architecture combined with voice-based energetic analysis and advanced sound protocols. It's wellness, but it's not at the same time. It's not mindset. This is not spiritual entrainment. This is frequency engineering for human consciousness. So if you feel called, your next step is to apply, because I hand select everybody. There is no public enrollment for this. There's no checkout page. You have to apply. And if you're selected, we will personally invite you to join us on this very special 12-week journey. And I say this, you're not here by accident. You found this message because your field is already searching for a higher signal. So now I think it's time to learn how to transmit it. So if you feel called, I invite you to apply now to join the frequency code Resonyx Gold case study. I'll see you on the other side. Until then, continue to live in resonance. Blessings.